Before I was understanding where it's like, oh, yeah, I'm kind of edgy. I say like whatever. I don't even know if you know who Adin Ross is, but the fact that like Donald Trump's like shouting this guy out, like this is a guy that like 6 months ago, if you Google me and him, like he's on a like show with me, like screaming at me, you're a 40-year-old, you're a 40, like 50 times.
We can go anywhere in public. No one knows who you are. Everyone knows who I am. So that's what I'm that.
Yes. Everybody knows who's that one guy that always came from Adin Tate's stream.
You're a 40-year-old. Guys, 40-year-old.
Adin,
you're a 40-year-old.
Like, this guy is being shouted out by President Donald Trump. And then the Democrats don't even want Kamala Harris to go on like Joe Rogan. Like, this is not working. This is insane.
I couldn't even get her on my show.
Oh, geez.
Like, I tried to get her on my show. And so that was some shit.
Yeah, the peer shows are always, it's like battle royales if you're a liberal going in. And then if you're right wing, it's like, oh, the softest of the softball questions.
But the best part about Piers is that he is insistent that he's not right wing. He will insist to the ends of the earth. And I've started calling him out on his shows. I didn't do it this time, but the last time I did, I even called out that like he loves to frame himself as being a centrist, and yet I've never heard him say one thing that was like generous to the left over the right. And also anybody with eyes or ears can see how he treats the right wingers on these panels. Like he is just so closely and clearly aligned with them.
Yeah, I don't know how to call out. I don't know if there's like a formal name for it, but there's a thing that people will do where what they'll say is that like I criticize both sides, and it will be like strictly as a matter of fact, it will be true. But the things that they'll criticize the right on, they'll say things like, well, maybe sometimes Trump is like a little bit too mean on Twitter. And then on the left, they'll be like, they want to destroy America. They're all communists. They cause World War III everywhere. Nuclear. And it's like, okay, it's not even remotely close. And that's probably like, yeah, it's the most annoying, like both sidesing of things that people do.
Also, that panel, like basically it was like 4-on-2 for the entire time there. And I don't know who Brianna Wu was. And I actually didn't know who Ben Ferguson was either, but my God, like he will talk until the sun goes down. I mean, I had to tell him at one point, I was like, dude, just like at any point stop talking so that somebody else can talk.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure it almost seems like Pac-Man wasn't joking, where he was like, if you let me say this thing, I won't talk for the rest of the show. Pac-Man said like 5 sentences. Like after 30 minutes, he just like completely stopped talking. Like of all the people, I'm just curious, maybe you can give me one, okay? Save me from this. Of all the people who said they were centrist or they were undecided or they didn't like both candidates or they just weren't sure, how many of these people publicly said, you know what, I'm going to vote for Kamala? Was there like a single one? All these libertarians, all these undecided people, all these like centrist show hosts, all of them were like, we have to support Trump. Every single one. Is there anybody that didn't?
Do you mean these people who like parade themselves around as like these centrists, like the Tim Pool? Where
the Tim Pools, the Dave Smiths, I think Dave Smith, I don't know if it was the first time he announced it, but he said with Piers, he's like, yeah, when he was sitting next to me, he was like, yeah, and I've decided that's why I have to support Trump. That's why I'm going to support Trump. So I was like, yeah, literally nobody is surprised, dude. There's not a single unsurprised person listening to this. Like, what? Dave Smith is voting for Donald Trump? Like, no way. Like, yeah.
No, but it's how their branding is smart in the sense that Republicans love to feel like they got one, like they got somebody from the left, and so they just let them fail all the way up. I mean, Tim Pool does that with his branding. Candace Owens does that with her branding, where she loves to pretend that she's some reformed, enlightened former Democrat. But these people are just through and through Republicans, and in large part, they're far right Republicans. They're no different than the exact MAGA base that they align themselves with.
Yeah, they were leftist for like reasons that were not at all like center or core when it comes to like policy stuff. And it's funny too, because you'll listen to these people like, I've always been a Democrat, like there were strong Democrats that I supported, like Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard. But I don't know if I can be with the party anymore. It's like, oh my God, like kill me, dude. And then again, the Republicans will say, for anybody that doesn't support Trump, they're not even Republicans, they call them rhinos, right? Like if you were to go up to a Republican and be like, yeah, I'm like a pretty strong Republican. I support people like, like Liz Cheney and stuff. Like they'll look at you like, oh, you're not even a real Republican then, Yeah.
Right. And yet they still skate by on their longtime liberal bona fides, and yet they'll deny somebody who is like a Liz Cheney, like the daughter of the Republican vice president, who was so deep in the center of the Republican Party that like Dick Cheney, are you kidding me? He's like the quintessential Republican, but that doesn't count because, whatever.
And it's like these like late age millennial, early age Gen X types who will say things like, well, I voted for Obama. And it's like, bro, what, when you were 21 in college? Like, why the do I care? Like, you get a lot of credit for that. Like, everybody voted for Obama. Come on. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do
So
you,
I don't know. I mean, what did you think about the rest of the? I missed your commentary on the earlier part of the debate, but curious to see what you thought about like. I think the disconnect was like Piers and these Republicans. First of all, I mean, the only time I've literally ever spoken about trans issues was on Piers' show, and that's because they know that it's an issue that benefits them to talk about over and over and over again. But like, there is no Democratic circles that are talking about gender reassignment surgeries in prison, that are talking about, like that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a super minor point. I don't know how much of you watch me talk about this, but like there are these like unified groups on the right and left, but the biggest difference is that the right is very supportive of the party and the candidate, and the left is not. So you end up you have this like weird media world where, let's say that Donald Trump runs over 3 school children. And now I'm on my podcast and I say, yeah, Donald Trump is horrible and evil. He ran over 3 school children. Well, what is Donald Trump going to do? He's not going on any left-leaning platforms, but he can run this entire media circuit on the right and the center, never get questioned about it, not critically. And not only that, but he can generate new attacks against people on the left. And then what happens when you're on the left? Okay, well, when you're on the left, you got to look at your media platforms. Okay, well, you can't go to any far left platforms. Okay, if I'm Kamala Harris, I'm never going to, like, I don't even know if Jimmy Dore counts as far left. We're never going to Jimmy Dore, never going on Breaking Points. We're never going on Hassan Piker. We're never going to these places, okay? Because they hate us, okay? Then you look at the center left. Now you go to the center left, and it's the most like finger waving, like hand waving, like, don't you think you should work on your messaging more? Don't you think that we need to be better about that? Don't we need to be more responsible in our thing here? Like, don't we need to be more critical of ourselves? Like, don't we need to figure this shit out? And it's like, damn, where the was this on the Republican side after 2020? Like, if you ask a Republican, like, what was the self-reflection that you did after 2020? They go, why the would I self-reflect? The election was rigged. Donald Trump is running again. We're coming for you in 2024, and we're gonna win next time. It's like, okay.
And the worst part about that is because they decided to bury their heads in the sand and pretend that an election that was stolen, pretend that an election that was legitimate was stolen. Now they've actually been validated in that strategy. There's no reason for them to do any self-reflection because it actually worked out for them in the end. Like, now that Trump has won, they're never going to change. Mm-hmm. I mean, this election was important because it would have served as a proof point that just straight up lying to your audience might not pay dividends. But in fact, now there's no reason for them to operate within the confines of any reality other than what they just create for themselves, because look, like, now they're in full power, and they did it on the back of this 4-year disinformation campaign where they can just claim that Trump lost the election, even though now, I mean, the logic that I put forward during the debate was the logic that I still hold now, which is this idea that, like, okay, so when Democrats were out of government, we figured out a way to cheat, to rig the election, and then A, we don't have that ability now that we do control the government, and then B, we just decided not to deploy it this time?
Yeah, that was my, I've made this argument a few times that somehow when there's a Republican president, he loses control of all of his federal agencies. Because remember, all of the Twitter files when the FBI was telling Twitter not to do, not to host Republicans, and remember all the big lockdowns that were happening and the BLM riot, like everything, all this is happening under a Republican president, right? The FBI, deep state, Antifa, January 6th, all of that. But then as soon as a Democrat is in office, well, holy what's the deep state doing now? Convicting his son of crazy gun crimes and shit. What the fuck? Like, it's not even remote. And you've got like in her report, and you've got Merrick Garland being like, we need a special counsel for these Biden documents. Biden got in more trouble for his documents shit than Donald Trump did for the obstruction for his documents in Mar-a-Lago. What the fuck? And then these guys have the nerve to say, well, there needs to be accountability for the Biden crime family. Give me a fucking break. Oh my God.
The interesting thing is, too, like, when a Republican gets in office, all the things that they would complain about when Democrats were in office, all of a sudden, like, they'll get all the praise for anything that's good. But if anything goes bad when a Republican is in office, then it's no longer the federal government's fault. Then it's the state where whatever incident happened, it's their fault. And if it's a red state, then it's the city's fault where those where those Democrats are located. So they can just go down the line until they find some Democratic contingent to be able to blame. But like on the right, it's not that case at all.
100%. And also, get ready to hear about all those things that didn't matter before. Things like, oh, GDP, that doesn't represent Americans. Oh, the stock market, well, not every American is. Get ready to hear all those same conservatives being like, oh, well, our GDP is at all-time highs. Oh, well, the stock market is actually growing more than it ever has been. All those things that didn't matter are going to become the most important figures. And remember when they're saying things like, well, prices aren't falling? Remember when you thought Republicans didn't understand what year-over-year inflation meant? And all of them are going to understand it magically. At the end of Trump's 4 years, when prices haven't gone down and they've even increased, all of them are going to become fucking economic statisticians. Well, they'll be like, why would you expect a reduction in the cost of goods? Like, the CPI never actually reduces like that. Like, it's impossible to bring down unless you engage in deflationary spiral. Like, all of a sudden they'll know it all. Like, where the was this 4 years ago?
Well, you've already seen that there are charts that chart out consumer sentiment, and already the Republicans, since the day Trump won, have like spiked in terms of how they view consumer sentiment now that Trump has won. So nothing has changed with the economy between today and 10 days ago or 20 days ago, but consumer sentiment among Republicans has spiked now because now that Trump's in office, all of a sudden they're warming up to the economy that he's about to inherit.
Well, remember before, was it a year ago that people were saying that the Biden crash of the economy that was going to destroy it, but then obviously the market rebounded.
It was like 24 hours long.
Yeah, and then when the market rebounded, it went up. Remember, it was because what did Donald Trump say? The stock market recovered because they think that I'm going to win the next election.
In anticipation of his victory. Any day where he decided he had a good enough poll, then any increase in the stock market was completely his credited to him, and then any day where it went down was just Joe Biden, Kamala Harris's fault.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild. It's the media environment is just crazy. Like, I don't know. Yeah, there needs to be more accountability for these guys. The whole like, weren't you better off?
Right. There won't be because, like, again, to the point I just made, now they have every incentive to double down on the lies because they know they are so insulated in the right-wing media bubble and nothing gets through that they can like take this position that Kamala Harris had in 2019 that she has since disavowed, to the dismay, by the way, of even far left or progressive outlets. I know that The Nation wrote an article about her where they were lamenting the fact that she didn't hold this position anymore about trans inmates getting gender reassignment surgeries, but now there's no incentive to do that because they've seen that they could just pick some position, throw a ton of money behind it, and there's no way for anybody to find out otherwise. Like there really isn't. I mean, that's what they did in this. They made out of whole cloth a position that they said she predicated her campaign on, and everybody believed it. It was like one of the most effective campaigns in this cycle, the one where she made those comments. And so I don't know how we move forward from this, and these people like have any scruples about what they're saying because there's no incentive to do that on the right anymore.
Yeah, it's all about incentives. Anytime people are acting in weird ways, I always tell people like to look at the incentives. Like if you see a child screaming in a store and you're like, God, what an annoying, stupid child. But then like the mom gives him the candy bar, or the dad gives him the candy bar. It's like, well, no, the child's smart. He's doing exactly what he needs to. And I was telling people, like, some people were asking, what do you think is the worst thing that could happen for a Trump presidency? And I said, there's a world where unless he does something extremely insane or unhinged, which, by the way, he absolutely still could, there's still a possibility of that happening. One of the worst things is just validating everything that's happened so far, right? That the whole, and even depending on how deep you want to go, like it's just so, like everything relating to that January 6th case, Thomas like schizophrenically writing random shit in the immunity opinion so that Judge Cannon can throw that case out for long enough to Trump become president. So so he never has to like face any of those charges. Like all of this behavior, every single thing became A-okay because they won. Why wouldn't you engage in this behavior again? You'd be stupid not to, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so like the problem that you brought up before too is that in building up the left ecosystem is that I feel like you get your cred on the right by showing how closely aligned with the God King, with Donald Trump you can be. And then on the left, you get your cred by showing how disaligned with the Democrats you can be. Like you can say, like, I get my bona fides in showing how hard against the Democratic Party I can push. And so you have a Republican Party against the Democrats. You have a right-wing media ecosystem against the Democrats. You have a left-wing media ecosystem that's against the Democrats. And so it's no wonder that where people are actually getting their news, there's nobody advocating for the very party, that's actually trying to push forward any progressive, agenda item.
It is completely and utterly fucked. Like people would laugh at me when I go on shows and they're like, "Who are you voting for?" Whatever. Because I'm probably one of the only left-leaning people on the internet who is like, I am voting for Kamala or Biden 100%. It's not even close. Like even the people that are willing to say it are like, I know they have a lot of problems and I don't support the double genocide, but like I think you have to vote for Kamala. It's like, bro, Jesus Christ. Like it's like being at a fucking wedding and the guy's like, do you take her to be your lawfully wedded wife? And you're like, I guess. It's like, Jesus Christ, where's the enthusiasm, right? Meanwhile, on the right, these like centrists are more for Trump than people that are supposed to be, ostensibly supportive of the Democratic Party, purportedly, but not actually. We're like barely even supportive of the candidate. It's crazy. Crazy.
Yeah. What are you doing like moving forward then in terms of like, what have you seen from this election that's going to inform some change that you're going to make moving forward? Are you doing anything different? You're just like trying to...
I'm working on like writing out a bunch of stuff where I'm just trying to like get my mind around like how the media environment is working for a lot of these conservatives. And then I just want to I really want to internalize that and then just kind of start throwing parts of it at other people when I talk to see how they feel about it. And then once I understand how it works, I need to figure out how to be disruptive of it. So like one of the things that you just said is one of the observations I've made. I think it's one of the largest problems. It's like my heading for this is like left-wing media is not unified around the party nor the candidates. I think that's a huge problem. Your only buy-in for the right is you have to support Donald Trump. And if you do it, you're in. You've got it. You're good. But they enforce, people will say things like the left wing does infighting so much, but the right wing doesn't infight. That's not true. The right wing is incredibly stringent about infighting. You have to support Trump. The reason why the left wing seems like they infight more is because they do engage in infighting, but the infighting is to support like nobody. The infighting is that you have to be like almost like this like anti-American or this rabidly crazy progressive LGBT stuff or whatever, the stuff that like most people don't even buy into. And they're very hyper fixated on that.
There's a zero tolerance policy for any dissent on the most pure on the most pure aspects of the I cannot tell you how many times I've been told like, oh, this guy calls himself a progressive when he he's not fully on board with XYZ.
Yeah.
And so you will be like relegated into some category of a neo-lib shill unless you take even if you support some edge case position that 90% of the country doesn't support.
Yeah. I'm perma-banned from Twitch largely because it was a huge argument got into where I think that trans women shouldn't be in the same supporting categories as cis women. So it's a belief that I have. I think I can back that up a lot of data, but that's it. But otherwise, I'm like a super rabidly like pro-trans. Like if you're 14 and they can figure out you're trans, have hormones, whatever. But like that's enough to like excise me. There are other reasons too. I don't like me on the far left. But all of that, even aside, I wouldn't even mind that purity testing as much if at least they supported the candidate. But they don't even support the fucking candidate. There's not like you need to be on board with Palestine. You need to be on board with all this stuff. Okay. And we all vote for Biden or we all vote for Harris. But they don't even support the fucking candidate.
Right. And I think like, at the end of the day, like that's why when you see, for example, a lot of these ballot initiatives and measures that are passing, these progressive measures passing in places like Missouri and Florida, and yet the candidates lose because there's no connection between any of this, any of the agenda and the actual people who are going to work to enact the agenda.
Yeah,
and that's because we have no support among among our influencer class, media class for the actual people. It's just like a lot of it is just support for these ideas as like nebulous ideas, these ideas like in a vacuum, but not the people who are going to espouse them because inevitably you're going to find some imperfection with them. They're not going to, pass whatever purity test you've imposed. And so can't support that person, but still the issue unto itself will stand.
A single statement is enough to vindicate a Republican politician, and a single statement is enough to crucify a left-wing politician, and that's true on both sides. Donald Trump gave an hour-plus speech at the Ellipse where he is just on an unhinged rant about fighting for the country, forcing people to choose fake electors. You're going to lose everything. We have to give them strength to make the right to do all this shit. And one sentence was, I know you'll go marching peacefully. And somebody's like, well, that vindicates every single thing that happened that day. Meanwhile, for Kamala Harris, one of the most repeated talking points was the fucking transgender surgeries for inmates in federal prisons. Like, this is like two people. What the fuck are we talking about?
Yeah. Well, no, that they love to do that. It's such an interesting tactic that they take. So like Trump could have made a speech where he's like, we need to rip them apart, go storm the Capitol, beat the shit out of them. You should go down there peacefully. And like one comment that he makes, they decide absolves all of the times that he. I'm trying to think how to say this so that it makes the most sense. Like they will point to times where he didn't say something incriminating as if that absolves the times that he did. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It can be something along the lines of like, we need to murder all of our political opponents. We need to hang them in the streets. We need to watch the blood run. And all of these things, after we've gotten our courts to convict them of crimes. And then the Republicans will just say, well, they were just talking about convicted people. Are you saying the death penalty is not legal in the United States? And it's like, okay, wow, okay. I mean, like, actually, don't even use analogies anymore. You can just look at history. People got mad at Biden because of that bullseye comment that he made to a private donor meeting about like we need to put Trump's campaign in the bullseye, and Biden had to apologize on liberal media for that. Meanwhile, there's an actual, I think, a Democratic senator. What was her name? They got shot in the fucking face after a Republican person running for office had an actual fucking target bullseye on her face in a commercial. What the fuck? Gabby Giffords, yeah.
What about the revisionist history on the fact that the guy who tried to assassinate Trump the first time was a fucking Republican? Like this, and how much you said no?
Oh, no, I said, oh, you're right. Yeah, no, yeah. It's
I mean,
yeah.
like, I think his name was Ryan Ruth. Is that right?
I
Like,
don't
this
remember.
guy's
It's not that, yeah.
registered Republican. And so and immediately after that it became they. Like everybody on the right was lumping him into the left as if we had some ownership over some registered Republican out there.
Yeah. And then like the Secret Service were against Trump and they wanted, and also like, I also love the, it's a common thing where like your opponents are simultaneously like all controlling, but also the most inept morons of all time. Like the Secret Service was in cahoots with the guy that shot at Trump, and that's why it took him so long to get the guy. But somehow this guy can't get a real scope and zero it for his rifle and make a shot at 100 yards with an airfield. Like what the how is it like simultaneously they're so coordinated and so powerful and so deep state ready, and then they failed at like the most obvious assassination plots like at all time. Like it's all nonsense, bro. Oh, it's so crazy.
Yeah.
This is 1/100th of the insane shit. This doesn't even get into all of the open lies of all the lies about FEMA, all the lies about hurricane machines, all the lies about the train derailment thing and liberals burning the chemicals to poison everybody and the fucking boats crashing into the bridges so that the Mossad can hide what's going on in Palestine and it's just everything.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for letting me on your stream.
Yeah. Have fun.
Appreciate it.
We're gonna have a fun 4 years, assuming Trump doesn't start murdering or arresting us or denaturalizing people. I guess, so we're doing that too, decitizenshipping people. So,
yeah. Are you doing anything, by the way, to like the problem? I think the problem with at least I can speak for myself, but I was banking on having some of this time. Assuming Kamala won, I was banking on having this time to actually relax after what was basically 2 years of just Trump anyway. Because as he came back onto the zeitgeist, that's all we could focus on. How are you like navigating what is inevitably right now just an immediate entrance into Trump 2.0?
I want to see a significant change in the media landscape. So whereas before I was a lot more conservative with my approach to candidates and parties, I'm trying to I've got a few meetings set up and I'm trying to bark up a lot of DNC trees right now. Like I would like to be The idea is I would like to be in charge of or have a major role in one of the 2026 Democratic campaigns, like for federal, like House or Senate or a governor race. I think we can run the ground game better. I know I could show up 500 plus canvassers, probably 1,000 plus for a call to action like this. We have histories of like running long-term campaigns and everything. Like we have the infrastructure and everything to do it. I want to be a lot more involved in like pushing that stuff because like like before I was understanding where it's like, oh, yeah, I'm kind of edgy. I say like whatever shit. But like Donald Trump, I don't even know if you know who Adin Ross is, but the fact that like Donald Trump is like shouting this guy out, like this is a guy that like 6 months ago, if you Google me and him, like he's on a like show with me, like screaming at me, you're a 40-year-old, you're a 40, like 50 times. And I'm like, this guy is being shouted out by President Donald Trump. And the Republicans like, or I'm sorry. And then the Democrats don't even want Kamala Harris to go on like Joe Rogan. Like this is not working. This is insane.
I couldn't even get her on my show.
Oh, geez.
Like I tried to get her on my show, and the look, I get on one side that they probably viewed my show, they viewed Pod Save America as like, we've already got this audience, and so what's the point? And so we'll just go on to Caller Daddy, all the smoke shows like that, where there's a bigger independent audience. But at the same time, that is a failure of this campaign to use this rare moment in time where the whole world is watching and actually validate these creators who are then going to move forward and advocate for your agenda for the next 12 months a year. Like, and nobody laid hands on anybody in left of center media at all.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
it's
like they squandered all of this time, and then they wonder why we don't have as strong a media ecosystem as the right does. But like, what did the campaign do? And look, I get it. They had 170 days, so I don't know that I would have actually like changed anything. But you know, for her to have validated, not even me, just like find some smaller creators, find some people that you can lay hands on and give them some cred when they move forward, and like then those people can become emissaries for you and the Democratic Party. Pete Buttigieg is really good at this, where
yes,
he will go on a ton of small shows, and not only does that help these shows because now they've got Pete, they've got a stamp of approval, they can get more views themselves, but like that 10 minutes he gave them, these people are going to be such big fucking fans of this guy forever because of what he did for them. And those people can be evangelists for him. They can be missionaries for this guy moving forward. And so it's a win-win. Like they're going to sing his praises for the rest of their careers, basically. And now those people have a megaphone too, to do the day-to-day work that the party needs.
Yeah. The Democratic establishment needs to get better at like weaponizing their members in Congress to actually go out and do things. Unfortunately,
They'll just go on like they just keep they're. I think they view it as not being a legitimate appearance on some media outlet unless it's got the halo of mainstream media, unless it's like
yeah.
CBS or ABC or CNN.
But you have to, like, the thing is, and this comes down to like understanding the media environments, and everybody does this today. You're playing a lot for the short clips and everything, because maybe going on a Brian Tyler Cohen or even like a Destiny stream or even a smaller stream, maybe that doesn't get very many views. Maybe it gets 20,000 views on YouTube, which is nothing. But maybe you have a clip on that actually is like resonating with people, and then it goes on TikTok, and then it blows up, and now you've got people on mainstream media that are talking about that particular thing, right? And this is the type of attention grabbing. Again, you've got so many people. What is it? Over 600 members in Congress, according to Jill Stein. You've got so many people in Congress. Okay, use these people. Send them out to do shows and stuff. The only people that are willing to do it are very, very, very far left. Is your AOCs. AOC needs to be a fucking model for how to engage with the media. She was like one of the most popular politicians in the world as a member of the House of Representatives. It needs to be more. Yeah, Ro Khanna does a decent job. Pete Buttigieg does a really good job, obviously, of going out. Like more of these guys need to go out and like get active on stuff like this. Yeah.
Yeah, but they don't. I mean, the sad part is, like, we had this rare sliver of time where these people again could have laid hands, and like all of the major moments, all of the news. When was the last time you saw a Republican figure break news on any mainstream media outlet? They've always given their news to Breitbart or Daily Wire or Steve Bannon's podcast. That's where they break news, because they know that's going to drive people's attention to those outlets. And yet the Democrats only give it. Like I've had, I think it must be over 295 interviews at this point. And like, no one has been like, hey, we want to break some news on your show. Mm-hmm. They will save that for like something that has the glossy veneer of mainstream media. The same mainstream media that 5 minutes later, they'll turn around and criticize because they do both sidesism. I mean, how many times do you see Democrats complain about Axios or Politico or any of these shows? And yet, like, they still reward them. Like, talk about incentive structure. They reward these people with all of the news anyway, even though regardless of how much they complain about it.
Yeah, like the approach is crazy. Like if you've ever gone through the slides on that Fox v. Dominion lawsuit, like Fox News is like, what are the intentional lies that we can tell our audience to keep them from going to OAN or Newsmax? And then on the left, it's like, okay, well, how are we going to challenge Kamala and Biden in the most brutal way possible to keep ourselves honest? It's like, It's just not the same environment. It's not even close. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, like, doesn't mean that you can't be critical. And in fact, if I'm going to do one thing moving forward, I mean, now that we didn't win the election, and there is not even any leader of the Democratic Party, I feel less obligated, because like going into the election, there is a sense of obligation where I'm like, okay, if I say something publicly that's too critical, then it'll be weaponized by the right. And so, because they're not doing it in good faith. Like I would be criticizing in good faith. They would be weaponizing it in bad faith. And so you have to figure out, like, is it worth it to say something, because if it's just going to be weaponized by the right. But now we're in the wilderness, man. And so, like, you kind of freed up to say whatever you need to say and be as critical as you need to be. But I do think so it doesn't need to be like this groveling, Kim Jong-un, North Korean lady style media. But at the same time, there has to be some sense of, like, if you are as progressive as you claim to be, then you get nowhere by hurting the only party that's going to get you the closest to it. Yes, they're not going to satisfy whatever purity test you've imposed, but like, it's a hell of a lot closer than than what we're in right now. Where, like, Lee Zeldin with a 14% rating from the League of Conservation Voters is going to be in charge of the EPA, where Matt Gaetz is going to be in charge of the Department of Justice, right?
I'm curious, because you're more mainstream, you understand the environment more than I do. I think are these people all getting confirmed?
Well,
is Tulsi Gabbard really going to be DNI? Is HHS really going to be fucking RFK? Is this actually happening? Is Matt Gaetz really going to be the AG?
All I can say is, I've never. You won't lose money betting against Republicans being the most extreme groveling sycophants on earth. Like, you will not lose money betting that they will just do, like he says jump, they say how high. There may be a few of them. I don't know. I mean, like, the only litmus test in the Republican Party is how much slavish devotion you can show to Trump. And so, are you going to have people out there who vote to confirm a guy who was just investigated and for sex trafficking of a minor? Like, probably a lot more than we think. I don't know. I mean, right now the margin's 3 votes. They can afford to lose 3 in the Senate, 53 to 47.
The problem is like one thing people don't understand about congressional politics is that like people will look at somebody and be like, oh, this guy says he won't do it, or this guy says he will do it. None of those statements, I don't think citizens understand. It doesn't matter what you say you'll vote against or vote for when it's not the deciding vote. Like the people that are whips, Pelosi, like people will have these conversations with their lawmakers all the time. People will get mad about like AOC voting against something. And it's like, bro, this passed the House so easily. Of course she should vote against it. It speaks well to her constituents. It speaks well to her values. We didn't need this vote here. That's good. And it gives you negotiating room in the future. But like, I don't care about some, Republicans saying, I'm not going to support this, blah, blah, if they've had the votes to pass it, because it's meaningless at that point. And that's what I worry about, is that when push comes to shove and Trump, assuming he doesn't just recess appointment and then find some way to fucking, make that permanent or some shit, I don't even know. Assuming they do the votes that, yeah, you have a few virtue signaling Republicans, but for the most part, they all just go sailing through.
That's what's going to happen. What remains to be seen is whether there's enough of those Republicans who actually stand up with Tulsi. Like the main ones, I think. I mean, look, Pete Hegseth is the luckiest guy on earth right now because this whole like clown car that followed him makes him look like he's Winston Churchill trying to get a job in this cap. I mean, but Tulsi and Gates are legitimate concerns, and I don't know. I mean, like right now, based on some of the reporting you're going to hear, there's going to be people expressing concern. You'll have the Susan Collins of the world, but like, remember, these are the same people that expressed concern about Kavanaugh, and like were so easily duped or so willing to be duped when he said he respected precedent.
And my biggest my biggest concern too is that like if you machine gun out like 15 or 20, or I don't know what is the total number of cabinet level or cabinet equivalent picks that the president has? Do you know the number is?
Maybe like 44. Does that sound right?
Oh, because it was 40 out of 44 Trump cabinet. But I wonder if that included multiple positions. Whatever. Regardless, if they end up machine gunning out like,
oh no, there's 15. There's 15.
Okay, gotcha. If they end up machine gunning out like, like 13 unhinged picks and like 2 reasonable ones, and then it comes back and they're like, well, we pumped the brakes on this, we got rid of like 3 or 4 of these that were over the line. It's like, okay, well, fuck me, right? And that's going to be the talking point too. If 9 unhinged people get in, I don't want to have 4 years of debating people where I'm like, I can't believe that fucking RFK, who's the head of the fucking FDA or not, the HHS, has like now basically in a roundabout way made it so that like you need a 20-year approval wait time on vaccines. And then somebody's like, wasn't it enough that they took out Tulsi Gabbard from you? Like, wasn't it enough that they blocked this one? And it's like, no, it wasn't enough. The other people are fucking unhinged too.
So, and I don't know if this is absolutely like a strategy that I could see them using is like to throw somebody to the wolves because they're so extreme that you're like, okay, well, basically we'll shift the Overton window so much that if we'll throw a sacrificial lamb that is Matt Gaetz, and then everybody else by comparison looks relatively sane. But at the same time, Trump has control of the House and the Senate, and I don't think he's one to say like to strategize like that. I don't think he's one to say like, okay, we're going to throw Matt Gaetz out there and just try to get somebody more moderate. When has he shown us that he's willing to moderate on any position? I mean, like, let's not delude ourselves into thinking that RFK Jr., like an avowed anti-vaxxer, is not the most extreme pick that would ever have been chosen for any cabinet level position in the history of this country. And Tulsi Gabbard and Matt Gaetz, like every single person is a complete opponent of the very agency that they're seeking to lead. So I don't know that he's looking to throw out some sacrificial lamb. I really do think he's just going for as extreme as he possibly can get on all of these positions because, like, he views it as a mandate. He knows he has the most pliable, supplicant Republican Party that you could possibly ask for. And so why not? What do you have to lose?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Yeah. Who knows? Yeah. I don't have anything good.
I am seeing somebody in the chat was saying Rubio is a neocon though. And that is like the irony of this is all these people spent so much time complaining about like these rhinos. And then there are a few of these people in the cabinet. Like what was the one guy who was like Dick Cheney's Homeland Security? Oh, Mike Walls, was it?
Maybe, yeah. The one thing I will say for people to be careful on that though, if they're thinking that, oh, well, at least we'll have somebody good here for like Ukraine or whatever because of Rubio's past statements. Being a neocon at that time and supporting Ukraine didn't have a big political price tag. There weren't people at the time saying things like we're spending money on Ukraine instead of money at home. Now that that's a new talking point, I don't know if these people who were prior war hawks or prior, neocons, I don't know if they'll have the same position. They could completely 180 on all of that and go, well, I supported it back then, but insert all the Kremlin talking points about Ukrainians dying and, the money wasted in Ukraine could be spent in America. And then they're just like not in favor of that anymore.
By the way, we know that they're predisposed to do that because how many clips are there of Rubio? How many clips have you shown in your shows of Rubio saying something about Donald Trump in 2016 and like saying things like, I mean, the things he said were so pointed and so embarrassing for him now, where he complains about those who like sell every ounce of their dignity and integrity down the river in deference to Trump, and like now he's the guy's Secretary of State.
Yeah, I mean, look, Vance said that he was worried that he could be, maybe he's America's Hitler, right? And he's the vice president.
Right.
Look at the articles that people like Matt Walsh or Ben Shapiro wrote 2016 about how they would never vote for Donald Trump because of his moral character or lack thereof. I mean, yeah, it doesn't
That
matter.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So I don't know. I mean, like, if his position is that he wants to be like a pro Putin, basically an asset of the Kremlin, then like I wouldn't put it past Marco Rubio to shed his neocon bona fides and just become some complete, Tulsi Gabbard-esque talking head for the, for Russia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this doesn't even touch the Elon Musk insanity and everything related to that. So.
Yeah.
I got a dinner that I'm probably gonna be late for now. So, any final thoughts or parting words or anything? Or
That's it. That's it. Catch you for the next one.
all right, thanks for having on. Good luck. See
All
you
right.
later. Bye.
See ya.